Our next guest is no shrinking violet. He's a very successful entrepreneur who is an open book. That's the name of his podcast, Open Book. He was fired by former President Trump after just 11 days in the White House. Along the way, Anthony Scaramucci has gotten a few black eyes, but you will not see them on the cover of his new book, From Wall Street to the White House and Back Again. Looking like a glamour shot on the cover there, Mooch.
Took a lot of money to Photoshop that mug of mine, Gentry. A lot of money. But that's also my high school yearbook picture from 1982. But, you know, a man has to do what he has to do.
You're looking pretty fly for a white guy on there, man. I've been reading through the new book and a lot of Unbreakable Resilience here with our guest, Anthony Scaramucci. You kind of remind me of that inflatable bounce-back punching bag that I had back in the 80s. When you hit it, it just pops right back up. What do you think is the playbook for you when you see an obstacle in life? What does that playbook look like?
Well, I mean, listen, there's a lot of sand in the bottom of that punching bag, and it's a good metaphor. You got to have a good base, and you have to have a good foundation of knowing who you are, irrespective of what other people think you are. And I think that that's always a distortion, particularly when you go into politics. You know, one of the first things that happened to me when I entered politics is someone went into my Wikipedia page. They were clearly from the opposition research in the Democratic Party, and they twisted up my biography like a pretzel. And people do this to you when you have a high profile or when you're in politics. And I think the core thing that you need is just a good, strong, sturdy level of self-esteem and recognition that what you think of yourself matters. And you know, it's sort of what your grandmother once said, Gentry, what other people think of you is none of your business. And you have to live a little bit by that. It's hard to do. I'm not saying I've done it in every aspect of my life, because we are human beings and we do want other people to think well of us. But we don't want that to over-control the direction that we take our lives.
Well, one way you can avoid any failure is to just, not do anything. But if you're taking risks, like our guest here, Anthony Scaramucci, you've taken a lot of risks in life, which hence you have failures. What do you think over the course of your career has been your biggest risk?
Well, listen, I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad was a crane operator. He got paid by the hour. He was in a union. And so my family was not risk takers, to be candid. My dad had a high school diploma. That was about it. Same with my mom. And there was a bias towards taking a job like that. In fact, if you looked at the community I grew up in, most people did that. And so I would say to you that the key thing for me, I just wanted something different. And if you want something different and you don't live in the spot that you want to go to, you've got to go through several rites of passage. As an example, I was wearing a polyester suit for my first Goldman Sachs job interview. I was fully flammable in that first job interview. All I had was plastic on me. And the guy looked at me and said, "Look, you're the worst dressed person that we've ever met, and I'm going to invite you back for another interview, but you got to buy a normal suit." And for me, that was embarrassing. I was self-conscious about it, but I kept pushing forward so that I could try to create the life that I wanted. Now, you do that, you're going to land on your head a few times. And so the White House firing, man, that was rough, because it wasn't just a firing, which most people, when they deal with a firing, it's stressful enough. I got fired very publicly, and then I got destroyed by late-night comedians. I think Jack Oliver had like a 28-minute segment on me, and it was absolutely brutal. And so, my point to people is, as long as it's not a health thing, you can survive it, you can thrive, care a little bit less about what other people think of you, and stay on mission. And by the way, Mel Brooks has a great line about all of us: relax, none of us are getting out of here alive. And so don't take yourself as seriously. When Colbert on the Colbert Show said, "Hey, did you think you were going to last a long time in the White House?" I looked at him and said, "Well, I thought it was going to last longer than a carton of milk in the refrigerator. I mean, the milk wasn't even spoiled, and I was blown from the White House." And I think it's very important for people. You want to achieve your dreams, be lighthearted to the extent you can be about your setbacks.
I'm thinking, though, Mel Brooks may buck that trend, because for whatever reason, Mel Brooks, I believe, still alive. And
Yes, he is. 97. God bless him.
Yeah, man, still kicking.
One of my intellectual heroes, Jen. He's the man. I've read almost everything he's ever written. He's got a great autobiography out, All About Me, which is this very clever, sarcastic way of saying things. But he's a beautiful guy, and I would recommend that book to anybody.
Speaking of readings, I noticed in your book that you mentioned the Roman emperor a lot, Marcus Aurelius, who has a very stoic philosophy, of course. How has his writings helped you in your journey? Because you mention him a lot in your book.
So the general, just to give some context here, the Roman Empire was not going well by 180 AD, and when General Aurelius took over as emperor, he put some policy measures in there to correct the trajectory of the empire. And as he likes to say in his book, his goal was to cheat history. He understood from history, even way back then, that empires rise and fall, but he wanted to cheat history and extend the life of the Roman Empire, and he did that, and he was very successful at doing that. He wrote a diary. He told his slave that, listen, upon my demise, I want you to burn this diary. These are my meditations. These are my personal thoughts to myself, which help me get through life. He also taught that slave how to read. And so when he passed, the slave read the book and made a decision not to burn it. And he passed it on and got the book published to the extent you can publish something in the ancient world. And it spread like wildfire. So it's a very, very short book on Stoicism, how to hold yourself, how to think about life, recognizing that things are temporary, but also how to face the truth in life. If you're able to face truth in life, it comes with a relief. It comes with an ability to not take certain things too heavily. And I think that's the whole concept of Stoicism. I read that book every January, and so most people are hungover perhaps on January 1st, but I get a pot of coffee. I crack open that book. It'll take you about 4 hours to read it, but it fortifies me at the beginning of every year in terms of how to think about life, and I tried to put a lot of his teachings in my own book.
Well, we recommend you don't wait to the new year to get this book. From Wall Street to the White House and back, it's available wherever you read books. I would be remiss if I don't talk to you about my portfolio. I highly respect your opinion. I don't know how much you can, give us here on the show, but I'm hoping you can. I have a lot of growth stocks that I see. AI is a big one, electric vehicles, even the weed, and crypto is another thing that has bounced back. I'm curious, of all the AI stocks out there, which one should you have in your portfolio? Which ones you like?
So, again, I have to qualify. This isn't investment advice. I'm just going to tell you what's in my portfolio. And then, but I own Astera Labs and I own NVIDIA. Those are the two I own. And I would tell people buy quality. And when you look at something like Apple or Google, it's, the best is behind it. I don't agree with that. Buy quality. Buy things that are American treasures, corporate treasures. And I would also tell people what I learned very early is invest every month. Pay yourself first every month. You're paying bills. You're paying your electric bill, your cable bill. I don't care if it's even $50. It could be $100, but write a check to yourself. Pretend that you have a bill, and that bill is going into an ETF, or that bill is going somewhere into the stock market. And if you're a patient person, you'll build a nice nest egg for yourself. And
I just read an article that says people for the first time are smoking more weed than drinking beer for the first time in America. What do you make of these weed stocks? They were like rocket ships a few years ago. They're now in the toilet. You getting on the weeds, Mooch?
Well, I mean, look, I'm a very candid guy. The problem is we have heavy drug addiction and alcoholism in my family. And so I've sort of abstained from these things because I know we probably have genetic weaknesses related to this stuff in my family. So I haven't been a weed stock guy. But if you're asking me, are those going to be successful businesses? And if I were just analyzing them without the emotion tied to it based on my family history, those businesses will be long-term success. And moreover, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, we are moving to the full legalization of cannabis in our country. which means that the banking laws around cannabis are going to be less restricted, which is by and large a very, very good thing for those businesses. But me personally, just because of my family history, I haven't participated or invested in that sector.
Our guest, Anthony Scaramucci, his new book, From Wall Street to the White House and Back Again, of course, worked in the White House with Donald Trump and been associated with a lot of politicians. Lasted 11 days in the White House before he was called a deep stater and got fired by the Don. What is it that you learned in those 11 days of being in the White House? I think we've lost Anthony. Anthony, are you there? Hello.
We lost him. We'll put you back on right now.
Okay. Anthony.
Hey, you there?
I was worried. I said that you were called a deep stater, and then all of a sudden we lost you. So I'm very concerned.
Let me answer. No, let me answer that because right, exactly. Maybe that was the Russians pulling the plug on it.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of ironic that I was called a deep stater because I grew up out here on Long Island. I had never really been to Washington at all, and I don't really have any attachment to the government. So it's very, odd that I'm called a deep stater. But remember, when Mr. Trump calls you that, it's because you're not following him. I took an oath to the Constitution, and there was a moment in the White House where I looked at him. I said, this is the people's house, and this is the institution of the presidency. You're a caretaker for that institution, and a result of which we have to act in the best interest of the country. Harry Truman had a great line about the president. He said, everyone gets to vote for the president in this country that is eligible. It's the only political job in the country where that's true. If you think about the Senate or your House of Reps, et cetera. And therefore, the president has to think about everybody and has to be a lobbyist here in Washington about everybody. Well, Mr. Trump didn't like that. He was at odds with that. And so when I disagreed with a direction he was going in, he would call me a deep stater. And, of course, the last time he called me a deep stater was on Saturday, and I was only there for 2 Saturdays. So I remember it was a Saturday. And then I got fired that following Monday.
What do you think are the biggest institutions in our government that you think we need to preserve at this present moment?
Well, the number one thing is the Constitution. I think when you read what President Trump wants to do, he is talking about something called unitary executive power. And so what that basically means is he wants to expand the powers of the executive branch relative to the judiciary or the legislative branch. And I think that's very dangerous. The experiment known as America, where the founders got together and said, listen, there's been tyranny in Europe. It's hurt the citizenry. We're going to set this up so that it's a flat system, decentralized. No one person could have a big power grab. And therefore, it forces everybody to compromise with each other. That is what's created the aspirational society. Because when you find autocracies around the world, and unfortunately 5.7 billion people are now living under autocracy, there's a combination of a kleptocracy and a lack of predictability of law. And so the people in the lower middle class never do well in those environments. And in America, up until recently, we've lived in a very aspirational America. And so I want to maintain that. I want to preserve that. And I want to find ways to break these tribal bonds that we have and the polarity that we have right now. And I think we need leaders that are going to help unify us as opposed to separate us. So those are the things that I want, and some things work great in America. Other things need to be improved. But as Lincoln said, it's an imperfect union, but we're striving to make it more perfect.
I'm noticing that a lot of my friends, at least a few of them, are now to the point where they're not happy with the right, they're not happy with the left, and they're going as far as saying, I'm not going to vote at all. I've heard you go on record saying Biden is going to win this election. I would like for you to talk to those people out there that are deciding not to vote, because I believe that will hurt President Biden.
So, what I would say to those people is that's exactly what the status quo wants. They want a disaffection of the electorate. There are 144 million people that do not vote now. They're registered, but they don't show up. They don't think that the vote matters. And I think we've got to stimulate those people. I think we have to explain to those people what's at risk and what's at stake and why the country's system of government up until now has served the interests of their family. Sure, we've got a lot of things that we need to do. Blue-collar, lower and middle-income people are suffering in this country, and we need to make the situation better and re-engage those people. But it's not with the panacea of wrecking the democracy. So to me, if you're a patriot, my appeal to you is come out and vote and help us preserve the system of the American government, which has by and large worked very successfully over the last 250 years.
All right, one more question before we wrap up here, Anthony. Is Saturday Night Fever the greatest album of all time?
So Saturday Night Fever, to completely embarrass and mortify myself, was literally my national anthem. I know every song backwards and forwards. I can do the Tony Manero solo dance, the one he did at the 2001 disco. When that movie came out in 1977, November 1977, I thought John Travolta was the man. I blew my hair like him. I had those fat collared shirts like him. And I went back and watched that movie recently, and to the great alarm and shock of my children, they were like, "You are a meathead. You are a bonehead." And I said, "That is exactly right. That is exactly what I am." But I got the opportunity to meet Mr. Travolta at the 40th anniversary because he was playing John Gotti in the Gotti movie, and we had a party after that movie at one of my restaurants. And he told me that that was a period of time in his life where it was filled with excitement. So, yes, I love that. It is my national anthem. I do have a T-shirt that says Saturday Night Fever on it that I go to the gym with. How's that for full mortification?
Wow. Well, read the book and do some dancing while you listen to the Audible version. From Wall Street to the White House and back, Anthony Scaramucci's brand new book, and it's a good read. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you, my brother, and keep telling the truth, my bro.
Thank you, man. Very nice to be on with you. Happy Memorial Day.